you want me to just be up here, or do you want me to come on? Perfect.
Hum along behind your masks. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Don't you give up.
Don't you give up.
Keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your eyes.
Lift up your eyes.
Don't you despair.
Don't you despair.
Look up ahead.
Look up ahead.
The path is there.
The path is there.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Well, I know you're scared.
I know you're scared.
I'm scared too.
And I'm scared too.
But here I am.
But here I am.
Right next to you.
Right next to you.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Well, don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope.
Well, you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Don't you give up.
Don't you give up.
Well, keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to this MLK Day celebration. On behalf of everyone who has participated in putting this all together, first I want to say thank you to everyone who's participated in putting all this together. There's a lot of folks that came together for this, but on behalf of everyone who did that, welcome. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying, even after 2 years, it's just no fun talking into microphones and looking at cameras and wishing that we were together. So my hope and my dream and my prayers for this celebration in 2023 is that we will be able to be together. Because it seems forming community seems like it's easier to do when we're here. Dr. King defined beloved community as a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Dr. King believed that a beloved community was a group of people that could come together to solve any social issue, division, or struggle. And that's what we're doing tonight. We are coming together to continue that work to solve issues, divisions, and struggles, specifically here in our hometown and in Southern Oregon. So thank you for joining us. And before we get started, I would like to note that each year when we have done this, we have selected a local organization to lift up, to shine some light on, and to support. And this year, it is the Black Southern Oregon Alliance. And if you would like to support them, the best way to do that is through the Jackson County United Way office. And I'm told information for that is in the chat, so that is good. When you contact the Jackson County United Way office, make sure that you let them know that you are wanting to support the Black Southern Oregon Alliance. So here we are, not in person, but we can almost be in person. So use that chat feature. Use whatever's in front of you there. If you know what you're doing, great. If you're a little bit hesitant, don't be hesitant, because the more you interact from where you are, the better this evening will be. So again, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, everyone, and once again, welcome to our Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration here in Grants Pass. And the theme for our celebration this year is Beloved Community Building Bridges. And when we think about the beloved community, it was something that was very dear to the heart of Dr. King. And I'm going to read a quote from Dr. King that says, "At the heart of all that civilization has meant and developed is community, the mutually cooperative and voluntary venture of man to assume a semblance of responsibility for his brother." And I think that is the notion and idea that we want to carry on about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The idea that we care about one another. Community is not defined by race. Community is not defined by location. Community is not defined by gender. Community is not defined by economic status. Community is defined by the sense of responsibility and love that we share with one another. Community is defined by the recognition of the humanity of each person that we associate with. And so I think we talk about Dr. King's dream, but the dream will not continue unless we are willing to be a part of a beloved community, until we're willing to put aside our differences and recognize the humanity in one another, not put in place of the humanity our political parties, our gender biases, our racial biases, but to recognize that we are all created in the image and likeness of one God. And I think when we recognize that, then we begin to recognize the idea of Dr. King, of the beloved community. Beloved, everyone is beloved, and as Tom says, the beloved community provides for everybody. We don't have people sleeping out on the street when it's cold. We don't have people in tents when it's rainy and wet. We don't have people saying that we can't have you living in our community because you're not us, or you're not like us. If we want to build bridges, then we have to take down walls. We cannot build bridges with walls. And so I hope that as we continue to celebrate Dr. King, we don't do it in a cursory way. We do it in a way that is meaningful and that is important to us. And the only way we do that is by loving one another, and is by recognizing our humanity and our humanness, one to the other. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Scott. I'm the pastor here at Newman, and I'm glad that you all are joining us here online this evening. Now, today's theme, the beloved community building bridges, resonates with me because it implies action. To build a bridge, to build a community requires that we do something. You cannot build with words alone. You cannot build with good intentions alone. The work of creating a beloved community and seeing the complete dignity of our neighbors means actively working to tear down the systems that perpetuate inequality, that oppress minorities, especially people of color. Events like this are important because they can rally a community around a common cause. They have the power to inspire us, to make us think, to teach us, and to help us to better understand the needs within our community. But even more important than the event itself is what we do after. When the speeches are over, when the panel discussion has concluded, when the music quiets, what then shall we do? After the 2019 Martin Luther King celebration, a group of community members, many of whom are in person here tonight, didn't want the celebration to end. We wanted to take the words spoken and the lessons learned, the passion shared, and take action. Thus, Courageous Conversations was born. And for those of you who don't know, Courageous Conversations is a monthly community conversation hosted over Zoom where we tackle all sorts of important topics around systemic oppression with a special interest in racial injustices here in Southern Oregon. Each month, 40 to 80 of us community members gather to learn and grow, to deepen our understanding and engage with our community on issues that are deeply important. And this is just one example of how beloved community can be formed. Another way to take action is to elect leaders who are willing to take on issues of systemic oppression and inequality. Dr. King's family, in particular his son, are asking the nation this year to use this holiday to fight for voting rights, saying no legislation, no celebration. Recently, voting rights have been restricted in 19 states, and where they're threatening to reverse decades and decades of steady progress. And in my faith tradition, I'm pretty sure this is true of the other faith traditions represented here this evening, we take voting seriously. So much so that it's codified into our institution. The United Methodist Book of Resolutions says that we call for a vision of beloved community, founded on economic and racial justice. This vision includes, among many things, reinstating and strengthening voting rights protections, and in light of continued systemic racism that threatens to undermine provisions for fair and free elections for all citizens. Further, the United Methodist Church opposes the disenfranchisement of formerly incarcerated persons. We know that incarceration rates are disproportionately impact communities of color, thus disenfranchising massive amounts of black and brown people. So while Oregon may not be ground zero for voting rights, it doesn't mean that you can't act to create change. The more our legislators hear about an issue from their constituents, the higher priority they give it. And just because we live in Oregon doesn't mean that we can't write or call other legislators and leaders in key positions. You can take action in other ways too. You can give financially to organizations that are taking on this fight, like the NAACP or BASE here in Southern Oregon. You can use your privilege to amplify other voices, the voices of leaders who are fighting for change. And you can further educate yourself and others on the history of voting rights and voting discrimination in the United States. Voting is the cornerstone of how we advance our nation, of how we work to create a more perfect union. The ballot box is the most effective tool we have to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, to provide for the common defense, to promote the general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty. Our entire system is built on having a voice, and for far too long, the voices of people of color have been ignored, disenfranchised, and shouted over with a chorus of white fragility. We cannot build bridges without first constructing a shared foundation of human dignity. This dignity can only be recognized when all voices are represented and valued. So yes, let's build bridges. But let's start by building a foundation first. Let us start from a shared set of values where every human being is seen, where the stories of our black and brown siblings are listened to, where the history of racism in our country is not whitewashed, where our economic systems are just and fair, where every life is valued and seen as precious. When we do this, when we build a strong foundation, we can then build bridges to a new and magnificent future, whereby all people are afforded the blessings of liberty. But when the speeches are over, when the panel discussion has concluded, and when the music quiets. What then shall we do? Thank you.
We resist, we refuse to let hatred in. We rise up, we won't back down. We're in it till the end.
We resist,
We refuse to let hatred in.
we rise up,
We won't back down.
we're in this till the end. We resist,
We refuse
to
to
let
let
hatred in.
We rise up, we won't back down.
We're in this till the end. We resist,
Praise for your remedies.
to let
Welcome the
hatred
stranger.
in. We rise up,
Show love to
back
your
down.
neighbor.
we're
In this
till the end. We resist,
pray for your enemies.
to let
Welcome the
hatred in.
stranger.
We rise up,
Show
we
love
won't
to
back
your
down.
neighbor.
We're
In this
till the end.
pray for your enemies. Welcome the stranger. Show love
to
to
your neighbor.
We're in this
Till the end.
pray for your enemies. Welcome the stranger. Show love to your neighbor.
We're in this till the end.
Pray for your enemies. Welcome
Welcome, you stranger.
Show love to your neighbor.
We're
In this
till the end. We're in
this
till the end.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Jones, and I just wanted to let you know that it is my distinct honor. Good afternoon. My name is Ron Jones, and I just wanted to let you know that it is my distinct honor to be a part of your MLK celebration this afternoon. As the Executive Director of Dialogs on Diversity, we put a high premium on making sure that we help people understand the stories of people and the humanity therein and the challenges that can sometimes be faced when that humanity is compromised. That's why we use theater as our principal delivery system. With that said, we've created a scene that I want to show to hopefully give you some more insight and depth into how we are trying to help people articulate and express and understand Martin Luther King's message of the beloved community. But before we do that, I just want to put a disclaimer out there. There is a religious language in this piece, and this is not designed or intended to discriminate against anyone who doesn't hold a Christian orientation. In fact, we believe that these messages, although Martin Luther King was a Christian pastor, that his messages are universal and that they speak to the dignity of all people, regardless of their orientation, be it sexual, be it ethnic, be it body type, whatever the distinctions may be. So it's never our intent to offend or to marginalize by using specific language. But because we're speaking about a man who did live over 50 years ago, some of the language may be interpreted as exclusionary. That is not our intention, and we wanted to make sure that everyone understood that that was clear. Moreover, we want people to understand that the trajectory of social justice and civil rights is something that we all need to be engaged in and understand as deeply as we can. And with that said, I want to show you this scene that we've put together to illustrate our interpretation of the beloved community. I'll see you on the back end. Take care.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What is all this slamming doors and coming in here like a crazy person? What's wrong with you?
I'm just so sick of people, man. You know what just happened to me? I was putting a Black Lives Matter sign in our yard.
Right.
And you know Mr. Ryan from across the street?
Of course.
He came out yelling at me, screaming, "Get that crap out of our neighborhood." You believe that?
So?
So, what do you mean so? That's messed up.
I mean, so what did you say back to him?
Nothing. I just stared him right in the eyes while I was pounding it to the ground. And with every one, I was imagining that stake was his narrow-minded head. Then he just cussed at me under his breath and went inside.
Okay, so what's the problem?
The problem? The problem is shallow people like him thinking they can talk to me however they want just because they don't agree with me. And I'll tell you what, if that sign goes missing, I swear I'm gonna go right to his house and I'm gonna...
And you're gonna do what?
I don't know.
Sit down. Sit down. Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
If you could get everything you wanted out of this movement tomorrow, what would that look like?
I don't know. Better cops for one. You know, putting away all the ones that kill us, beat us down. Yeah, lock them up. Better laws. Done.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, all right, good. Okay, so what about people like Mr. Ryan?
Man, fuck. Forget Mr. Ryan. It's not about him.
Oh, it's not.
No.
Well, for as much as you don't want to believe that, it is about him. It's about all of us. Listen, if you don't find a way to make it about him, he'll never change the way he thinks. And at best, he'll be against every solution you come up with. And at worst, he'll be indifferent to the pain and suffering you're going through. And that's sort of where he's at right now. And isn't that basically how we got to where we all are right now? For as much as you may not want to accept it, he's our neighbor. And this is a community. So the question you got to ask yourself is, what kind of community do you want to live in? In the last few years, we've been visited by social upheaval, the likes of which many have never seen in their lifetime. The strains of race, gender, class, and political divisions have taken a stark turn. The media only seems to want to focus on the heat and the rancor, which only seems to put more divisions between us. But I know that there's something better. And I know this because Martin Luther King spoke about it over 65 years ago. And what he spoke about was the beloved community. As we engage in this new wave of political and social challenges, we must always keep in mind the world that we want to live in. On this Martin Luther King Day, let us not just focus on remembering the man in the traditional ways that have defined his commemorations for so long. Let us not just teach and reteach the I Have a Dream MLK, but let us evolve and elevate our understanding of the whole man. The man who embodied the spirit of love and compassion that challenges us all. Here's a segment from his beloved community sermon, in which King lays out the strategy for how we need to move forward in making social change and what the effect will be. this is the same MLK that we've lionized since his death, but it is also the same man who was demonized when he was alive. The last few years of King's life were transformational for him as much as they were for the nation. He was always a student of nonviolence and love. He had always preached this message of love and compassion for all. But many saw his words in those last years of his life as radical. As he began to evolve his thinking beyond civil rights to human rights, I believe it was much easier for people to think of Martin Luther King as the champion of Black people rather than laud him as the champion of all people. He knew that building the beloved community was as much about transforming adversaries into allies and friends. It was about transforming our relationships with them personally to engage and tap into their humanity and putting the spirit of love in action. The King Center said that what he meant in those words in his beloved community speech was exactly this. Let's not fool ourselves about what those words mean. Building a beloved community is no small feat. It will always ask of us. It will ask us to be guided by, as Abraham Lincoln said, the better angels of our nature. Those better angels preclude us being swept up in the righteous passions and recriminations that sometimes can take us off track and make us lose sight of our North Star. No matter how just your cause, if we are not guided by the kinds of love principles that are spoken about in 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, then we run the risk of becoming zealots. And we will only pass on more adversarial energy that has brought us to the very place we are now. Passion has its place. Passion can drive people to a cause. No matter how righteous your beliefs are, if you lack compassion, you run the risk of becoming the very thing that you're fighting against. The beloved community requires that we walk towards those who are hardened of ideas and heart. For all those caught in the tangle of bias and bigotry, sexism, abuses of power and privilege, they are too prisoners, not of body or conscience, not of identity or circumstance, but of spirit. The rancorous anger that too often accompanies necessary social change is usually based in fear. And fear can only be won over with patience and courage. Modern history has given us transformational examples of this kind of courage. We have seen exercises in how more compassionate approaches have transformed societies. In Germany, about how teaching the Holocaust to students in a multitude of different ways has forced that country to come to terms with their darkest selves and grow from that. The earnest efforts of healing deep historic wounds built on politics or race. Both gave, both got. but it was all based on the idea that they could find a way forward in a more humane place together. We are overdue as a country for this kind of racial and political transformation that we have seen created in other parts of the world. For as challenging as it may be, our children deserve it. That's why we must all remember that social justice work is about becoming a societal parent. As every parent knows, raising a child and developing its character is a process. Long, sometimes frustrating, sometimes aggravating. But communication has to happen on the terms that can be understood by the person you're speaking to. For those who agonize with change they don't understand, this is how we build a beloved community. This will always require that we bring as much grace to the effort as we can. There will be times and days where we are not up to it. There will be those moments where we fail. And for all those moments, just remember that Martin Luther King told us that this is not impossible. With that said, I'd like to close out my time with a prayer from Martin Luther King himself. I'd like you all to close your eyes. And as you do, let these words wash over you and think about the world that you want to live in, that beloved community, that beloved world.
We resist, we refuse to let hatred in. We rise up, we won't back down. We're in it till the end. We resist, we refuse to let hatred in. We rise up, we won't back down. We're in it till the end. We resist, we refuse. Let hatred in. We rise up, we won't back down. We're in this till the end. Resist, we refuse. The enemies, let welcome the strangers. We rise up, show love to your neighbor. We're in this till the end. We resist, pray for your enemies. Welcome strangers. We rise up, show love to your neighbor. We're in this till the end. Pray for your enemies. Welcome strangers. Show love to your neighbor. We're
Good evening, folks. My name is Jenny Jackson. I'm a member of our Amazing Courageous Conversations team, which I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to for this evening. Reverend Tom Berry, Reverend Ernestein Flemister, Reverend Ryan Scott, and our lovely Sally Snyder. I am proud and honored to be able to introduce our panelists that we have here this evening. I'm going to introduce a few questions, and although they're going to be speaking to them, we would also love to hear your responses via the chat option. We have some great support staff helping us with that. So without much further ado, I will introduce our lovely guests. We have Hannah Rubens, a member of St. Luke's Episcopalian Church. She's a member of the working group that works on racial reconciliation within our community and in her church. Next to her, we have Davion Mosley, a Grants Pass High School student. Next to him, we have Monique Bracamonte, also a Grants Pass High School student. Very, very glad that you're both here to join us. And to bring up the end, we have Maya Carnegie, which is also a community member. Our panel topic this evening is respecting humanity, even when you don't agree or share beliefs. So that's the topic we're going to be speaking about tonight. And our first question I would like to introduce to you is, how can we show love to our community?
We can show love by treating everyone, treating everyone equally, regardless of their skin color or what they believe.
I think that I show love when I'm willing to be uncomfortable, when I'm willing to let the person whom I perceive as other enter my life and respond appropriately, even though it may be a new way, and even though it usually is difficult.
Well said. I agree that showing love, it can be challenging, and I think being able to show love during trying times is something really important to remember, that sometimes it can get frustrating, and not giving up on love when everything inside of you is screaming to retaliate or to react to something in fear or anger, but instead to take a breath, step back, and think to yourself, is this coming from a place of love? Because God is love. So when we're acting and actively showing love, we're showing the Christ-like side of us.
I think that we can just love each other with like the same amount of love that like we love our parents or our friends with, like regardless of how like we may disagree with people about certain things or not understand like their point of view, but love them for whatever, because they're also human. So.
Thank you. The next question that we have up is, how can we welcome people into our community and make it inclusive?
We have to want them. If we want them, they are welcome. If I'm unwanted, I'm not welcome.
Can you repeat?
Absolutely. How can we welcome people into our community and make it inclusive?
We can welcome them by showing love and involving them in activities.
I think we can just like put ourselves out there more. Not everyone's gonna like get along with people like as easily or quickly as others. So I think if you like allow to get yourself out of a comfort zone, you can achieve more and have people feel more comfortable around you and like change their perspective on things, and maybe something that's scary can be less scary to them.
I agree completely with Monique, what she said. Sometimes being proactive about approaching people that may be on the sidelines or look different from you or act differently from you can help bring them out of their shells and help someone feel included in activities where maybe they were a little bit shy of coming out into the community about, because it's really helpful when you have someone who's already in the community and meshed in it, kind of take your hand and bring you along and help introduce you to the greater society.
Very well said. Thank you. I think a lot of it is showing up and speaking and being brave, as you have all done tonight, so thank you for that. I'd like to kind of bring it back to our main theme about our beloved community, and this is also for our guests out there in the virtual world. How can you personally contribute to creating a beloved community?
As someone who has benefited from white privilege most of my life, and I say this as someone whose mother was half Vietnamese, so she was sort of honorary white because of my father, I believe in reparation. I believe in privilege, however I can help it go away, to do that. And it may be very small. I only learned this year when I was with an African American friend, and I wasn't thinking about tasting the grapes at Safeway before I bought one, that she would never do that, because she'd be accused of stealing. She even has one more degree than I do.
Can you repeat it again?
Absolutely. How can you personally contribute to helping create a beloved community?
You can personally contribute by putting yourself out there and yeah.
I could contribute by like something like putting myself in other people's shoes and like thinking about how maybe like people that I look up to or that I surround myself with, how they would handle like certain situations, and like think twice before like doing anything or stuff like that.
I think finding ways to be active within the community that we live is a wonderful way to contribute to creating a beloved community. Find things about the community that you enjoy and join groups and other people who are interested in improving those situations. Rather than complaining about things, it can be helpful to build bridges and find other people who are seeking to make improvements that you are looking to make within the community. Maybe join some groups, join committees, find your ways into local government, find your way into local Facebook groups even, and get involved. And I think that's a really good way of beginning to grow the community that we want to live in.
Thank you. I think that's really well said. I think we each have a voice, and learning to use it and showing up is a big part of it. Finding your people and bringing us all together. I'd really like to say thank you and kind of give you some more time to speak any of your final thoughts that you might like to share with our audience.
I thought it was wonderful that we touched upon the Voting Rights Act. I had a brief conversation with my family members today to wish them a happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. My aunt reminded me of something. This isn't ancient history. This is very recent history for many of us. My grandmother, she's 96 years old. The Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. My grandmother was 39 years old when she had law on her side to be able to go to the polls and vote. By the time she was 39, this woman had a master's degree and was working in a college as a teacher and as a professor, and was still having trouble going to vote. So just if we can keep that in our minds when you see people who are fighting to keep voting rights in place, how important it is that this isn't something that happened generations ago. This is recent history, and to stay active and to stay paying attention, because we're not really seeing it here. We're blessed in a way, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. And if we can just continue to pay attention and come together and fight so that we can continue to have these freedoms that we enjoy now, that my grandmother and my aunts and uncles fought for.
This morning I was remembering the day Dr. King was killed. I was a child, and I came home and my mother was weeping. And I asked her why she was weeping, and she said she was weeping for the children, and she was weeping for his family. And I remember, I'm a bit of a writer, and the poem that later came to me is, "My mother wept for all the children in the neighborhood. She wept for people all over the world. She also cried for me." And I still remember that. She was just brokenhearted that this had happened.
Well, thank you, each of you, for being here and for sharing your thoughts and your views. We're very grateful to have had you here. Did we have anything from our chat zone?
Yeah, there were no questions, but I did have a couple of comments here that I wanted to share. One person was just great to hear all of you on the panel there. What a way to show your courage and flex that muscle. Another comment was, how can you improve your community? And the answer was by listening, showing empathy, and by loving others.
Again, thank you all so much. I'll just echo what Jenny said. We really appreciate having you, and we're happy to hear your voices and include you all in this process of learning and inspiring one another in community. We're going to close this evening by singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. If you know the words, I invite you to sing along to your heart's content at home. And if you're in the room, you can sing as long as your masks are fully covering your nose and mouth. You can sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chasing rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not a weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you to Tim and Michelle for being our musicians for the evening. We're delighted to have you here again. Thank you to all of our panelists. Job well done. And thank you to everyone who helped organize this again, especially our tech folks in the back. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much. And to everyone in the community, we wish you a safe and happy Martin Luther King Jr. evening. And we invite you to go forth from this moment considering what you can do to help build beloved community here in our community of Grants Pass. Go in peace.